If your book promos keep flopping, or worse, you feel like you're doing everything right and still not seeing results, then this podcast episode is for you. The truth is, successful authors running a very different playbook in 2025, and today we're cracking it wide open. Today I'm joined by Emma Boyer, the VP of Digital Operations at Written Word Media. You may know Written Word Media as the team behind sites like Free Booksy and Bargain Booksy, go-to platforms for book promotions, and that's just among just a couple like there of the many that they have. But what you might not know is how much insider data they see every single day. Emma's here to break down what's actually working right now to sell books in 2025. And we're talking advanced promo timing, genre trends, return on investment myths, and the mindset shifts top performing authors are making. So whether you're wide or exclusive, newbie or seasoned vet, this is your chance to find out what successful authors are doing differently. Welcoming to the podcast, Emma Boyer. How you doing, Emma?
I'm great, thanks. I'm so glad to be here, Dale.
I'm super pumped. And the funny thing is, later on this week, actually in a couple of days, Self Publishing with Ally has a conversation between yourself and me where we're talking about this very topic. But we're not going to hit the same beats that we did last time, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, we're going to try to mix things up, and I came with a whole slew of great questions here. So this is going to work for a good twofer type deal. And I don't have the link to that show just yet, but I hopefully as soon as this goes out in the audio broadcast, I should have the link to that episode, so that way people can sit down and have a full binging session listening to Emma. So Emma, there's no pressure on you, right?
I was gonna say I'm not sure if I'd recommend binging these, but whatever floats your boat.
There you go. There you go. All right. So let's go ahead and start it out with these questions because I have a battery of them here. So let's start it out. The very first thing: what's the biggest difference you've seen in how successful authors approach book promotion in 2025 compared to previous years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think, it interestingly, some things have changed quite a bit and some things have changed not at all. So I've been at Written Word Media for 4 years now. And prior to that, I've been working in the publishing space for 20 years. And I think what is different, just to kind of underscore what is different, is I've definitely seen a shift, and this is not going to be a surprise to anyone who's sort of plugged into the indie author space, but I've definitely seen a shift towards authors trying to own their own audience, and authors pointing or wanting to point promotions, marketing, sales to kind of their own direct author stores, in addition to the traditional retailers that you see everywhere. So I think, one thing a couple years ago when we first started to hear a lot of buzz about, oh, authors are selling direct, I sort of mistakenly thought that there was going to be a shift away from our the Amazons of the world, or the Barnes and Nobles, or the apples of the world, and that has not turned out to be true. I think authors are doing a really wonderful job of leveraging kind of all of their platforms and reaping the benefits of the big retailers' audiences, as well as kind of porting some authors over to their own stores and creating their own fandoms and owning their own lists. So I think that's the biggest shift. And but really, like, the brass tacks of most promotions are not wildly different. So we still see things like free, first in series free promos working really, really well for authors. We still see authors who are able to find the right cadence working really, really well. So, I think a lot of the nuts and bolts of promotions are the same, but it's just sort of the mindset about where we're directing reader traffic that's a little bit different.
Interesting. I love hearing the fact that independent authors are starting to really embrace going direct. Do you and obviously we could probably talk about this for like the next 2 hours, but briefly, like what do you think has created this shift away from just solely relying on large retailers like Amazon or Kobo or Apple or Barnes and Noble, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think you know this, but I think that indie authors are really smart and they're really savvy, and I think they kind of figured out that they are doing all this work, right? They're creating a product essentially, they're doing the marketing, and to kind of reap even more of a benefit from that, then they essentially could become an e-commerce platform of the like in a very kind of easy way. And I think what led to that is basically the technology tools, things like Shopify, that kind of made it really easy for people to spin up their own retail store. I say easy. I don't want to minimize the effort that I know it does take because it is a lot of work.
Yeah, some authors losing
But
their
I
mind right now. Emma, you don't know.
yeah, no, it's a lot of work, I get it.
Yeah.
But I also think there are real benefits, and authors have seen this in a lot of ways, like not just from direct sales on websites, but from things like crowdfunding,
Ooh.
and the very real connections the authors have made with their fans. They've been able to monetize that in really smart ways. And I just can't say enough how smart I think that is for authors to own their audience, in a time where the marketplace is getting more and more crowded, in a time where readers are having to navigate things like AI generated content. Having that real connection with between an author and a reader is completely irreplaceable, and authors figured that out. So I think what has been really fun to watch is our authors starting to kind of bridge that gap and take advantage of other audiences like ours, for example. Like
Mhm.
the written word media audiences are certainly not audiences that authors own, but the authors are leveraging it by including their direct store links, by asking readers to sign up for their email list and their back matter, all sorts of really creative things that they're using kind of the same old promotional technique with an ebook promo, but they're using it in different ways and getting more leverage out of it.
Nice. Now, is there any you've got access obviously to massive amount of like author data.
Mhm.
We've kind of touched on direct sales. Are there any underrated trends you're seeing that more authors should be paying attention to? Like you mentioned very briefly, first in series is still kind of that tried and true. Are there any underrated trends, something that's been flying under the radar?
It's interesting. I think, under as far as underrated trends, I would say one thing I've seen more of over the past year is I've seen authors who are really steeply down pricing at launch. So that is not something that I saw a ton before. And that's, the tactic is the same. It's either a free or like 99 cents.
Mhm.
But we have an email product called New in Books, which is essentially a launch package for authors. But we also, for in the way it faces readers, it only features new releases. And
Nice.
I would say on our new in books list, we have seen more and more over the past year. That used to be kind of the higher end of price points. I would say people sort of thought during launch week, if the ebook list price is $4.99, then I'm going to keep it at $4.99 to take advantage of that momentum. But I've seen a lot of authors sort of shift that strategy and adopt a really kind of get it out there in that first week. So like
Mhm.
you taking the momentum they have with that launch and then adding on top of it the down price, so then you do all of the wonderful things that a down price does, where you're juicing those algorithms,
Mhm.
and your book is essentially on sale and you're getting it out there to people in a bigger way. So I would say it's not really a new tactic, but the timing of it is different. I hadn't seen anyone do that before. So, but I think authors are really happy with how that's going, because I've seen some authors like repeat this already. So that's been like really kind of like pulling out all the big guns for a week of launch. And
Mhm.
I know a lot is often made of launch, but I hadn't seen the price component. So that's definitely a new one. um Yeah, the other thing that I would say that I've seen a little bit more that's kind of flying under the radar is a little bit of a shift away from Amazon ads. And so that is not that's not a blanket statement that authors are not using Amazon ads. I don't know, but we
Yeah.
do have an ad product. We have where we use it's called Reader Reach, and we either advertise, we do the creative and the targeting on Facebook or Amazon. And although authors are still buying both, we are definitely seeing like the trend towards Meta continuing to weigh more strongly. And I think authors, I've maybe heard a little bit more that Amazon ads are not working for them quite as well as they used to be. So
Mhm.
that's, not really scientific. It's just a within our data set and the way that authors are using our product, which of
Yeah,
course some authors probably have their own wonderful Amazon ad system and are going to
true.
say, Emma, you're totally wrong. But that's just another thing I've seen.
Right, right. And I mean, obviously, this is just from your perspective from written word media. When they're coming, they're buying specific services and products and packages and stacks. That's what
Exactly.
you're saying. So it's not like a blanketed, everybody is going away from
No.
Amazon ads. Yeah, be careful. A lot of the Amazon ads experts are going to come after you with a pitchfork. Before they do,
No,
though,
no, no. Please don't.
yes, many authors treat like book promos as like a one-time push. How do successful authors use like long-term planning to maximize their results?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, the if you take nothing else away from listening to me today, I hope you'll take away that the 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 repeating nature, I'm not sure if that's the way I want to say that, but like the ongoing nature, the kind of keeping the momentum going. If you do nothing else, I think that's the most important thing you can do for the marketing of your book in over the course of its life cycle. So I think authors, I've seen a ton of really sophisticated authors who like really have it figured out and who are making a ton of money. We know we do an annual author survey, and consistently the authors who are making the most money, according to our annual author survey, are the authors who are doing the most marketing. I know that sounds really obvious, but it is also like the more is more, right? The motion begets motion. It's and I really encourage, even if you don't have a huge budget, even if you can't afford to be, running ads consistently, even if you can't run a promo every 45 days, like figure out what you can do on a consistent cadence and do it. That's like the number one thing I really urge authors to do is, of course, like in an ideal world, if budget was no obstacle for people, I would tell them, once every 90 days, like run a promo stack, run ads, like
Yeah.
do it all, throw the big guns at it once every 90 days and kind of rinse and repeat. And you start to really see the rewards from that, maybe not immediately, but like in your second cycle or your third cycle, you start to really see that every single time it grows, and your momentum just kind of keeps going, and it does without you having to, it without you having to push it every single day. And so this, even if for you that 90 days isn't going to be a huge push, even if it's just one email promo, even if it's, whatever that might be, even if it's just one ad set reaching out to an audience that works for you, like I just really really have seen that the authors who make the most do the most. So finding that right cadence is so important.
You briefly mentioned promo stacks. Now, obviously, we need
Mm-hmm.
to break down what is a promo stack because there's probably some authors that have never heard of that before. But I'm going to say that some authors swear by stacking promos, others avoid it altogether. What's the winning approach here in 2025? Like, is there a magic formula here that we need to know about, if there is even one?
Um, so a promo stack, for anybody who doesn't know, is a strategy that authors have used for a long time, probably since there were email promos, of kind of magnifying their audience reach when they run an email promo. So this, I think, probably stemmed from folks who are in Kindle Select who are, have limited deal days or limited free days over the course of their month. And so in order to kind of make the most of that, what authors did was, okay, I have five days of discount, or I have 5 free days a month. And over the course of those 5 days, insert any amount of time in this 5 day window that I'm talking about. It could be 3 days, it could be one day, it could be 2 days. Authors said, all right, if I'm going to run one promo, I'm going to run a free Booksy, for example, then I'm also going to run a Fussy Librarian or an e-reader News Today. And what that does for authors is it increases, by threefold, fourfold, fivefold, whatever that might be, the audience reach that you're able to get. So you're really kind of making hay of the one free day that you get. So the really wonderful results you might get with one site, are times 10x, depending on how many other promo sites you're doing.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, we at Red Media, we were like, oh, this is a thing that authors are doing a lot, and it's really complicated. So like I tried to do it a few times, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had like spreadsheets up and like calendars up and like 5 different promo sites up, and I was like, how does anyone do this and keep their sanity? You can't get a date you want. And but others were doing this all the time. So what we did is we have partnered with a number of other promo sites, and so you can book a number of promos all at once and as a promo stack right on our site. And our promo stacks are 1, 3, or 5 days, and they include lots of different things. So we have regular other book promotion newsletters that we're plugged into. We've got ads, but also we have some really cool non-book sites that we have partnered with. So we've got a retirement newsletter. We know retirees like to read, right? That you can buy as a part of a promo stack. Book clubs newsletter. So if your book is great for book clubs. Fangoria if you're a horror author. So we've got a number of really cool options that kind of maximize your reach over the course of 1 or 2 or 3 down pricing days. And I think the tactics haven't changed a ton here as far as like what works in 2025. But I do think that like the authors are really loving the results that they get with promo stacks. So I have seen more authors kind of shifting their strategy from maybe running more frequent one-off promos to running less frequent promo stacks, because they, whereas with one promo site they might see 2,000 or 3,000 downloads, when they have a promo stack running on one day, then they're going to see 10,000 downloads and they're number one in their category kind of automatically. So like all of the things that you want to have happen are pretty much happen when you run a promo stack. I'll knock on wood, but I think that's really the only kind of shift I would say is authors have this, and I want to just also caveat this by saying, like, we didn't think of this, authors did. We just tried to make it easier. So, and other websites, other promo sites do similar things, but it's really like our customers are so smart and sophisticated that we've just tried to kind of make life easier for them for the smart things they're already doing.
Nice. Boy, that covered a lot of ground. You covered some questions I was going to get ready to hit you with, but that's perfect. Let's go over.
Sorry.
No, excellent. I love guests like this. You make it easy for me. How does genre play into what works and what doesn't with promo strategy? Are there certain genres behaving differently this year than in previous?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, the only reason that the only things that I think are different are, those kind of genre fiction genres that have kind of always done really, really well, like
Mhm.
your mysteries, your thrillers, your romances. I think continue to do really well. I do think that we are seeing both on the author side and the reader side like a little bit more sophistication and nuance in what readers want, and also ways that authors want to position their books. So, like, we have gotten a lot of requests for kind of more nuanced subgenres from authors. Like, okay, well, my book is a rom-com, but it's also historical or whatever that might be. And so, I think that is absolutely something that as authors get more connected to their readers, they tend to know exactly what those readers want and exactly what other kinds of books they want. So that has been really interesting to see. That has resulted in wanting more nuance, and we've been able to do that. Like in our case of in the case of romance, we have a dedicated romance newsletter, so we have been able to build audiences and genres that authors have asked for. Where it used to just be steamy romance, now we've got like 20 different subgenres. So I think
Yeah.
that sophistication has definitely increased both on both sides, reader and author. Like, I don't think 5 years ago a reader would have said like, oh yes, I only want to read fantasy romance with like a powerful female protagonist. But like, I think that's a thing that readers are looking for now. So and it's our job at Written Word Media. We serve authors primarily, but we also serve readers, right? So we have to keep readers happy with the books that we're putting in front of them. So yeah, I think that is something that has changed a little bit. What hasn't changed, but I think bears repeating, is that I think one thing that authors love to do is genre bend, and I love to read that as a reader, but it does absolutely make your discoverability harder, and there's kind of no way around that. So one thing, I think sometimes when authors have written like a thriller with romance, or whatever it might be, like a mystery, but it has some cozy vibes, like, I think that can be actually a really big challenge when you're trying to promote to kind of audiences that already exist. So I think, I'm all for the genre bending. It's amazing, but I do think that it's when you're thinking about promoting, you kind of do need to pick a lane. So that's sort of one thing that hasn't really changed, but as we get more and more of these sort of genres and tropes that are like leading the day, it is definitely, you have to think about the more narrow you get, the smaller the audience is too. And so if you want to reach a bigger potential audience, then you have to think about what genre and how you're presenting your book.
So well stated. I've said it so many times. Genre bending, there's nothing wrong with you doing it for the love of the craft. That's fantastic. But when it comes to marketability, it becomes very tough. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you voiced it. Now somebody else says it besides me, and it's not just me talking out my rear end. Let's talk pricing. What price points are delivering the best ROI in 2025, and where are authors leaving money on the table?
That's a great question. So I think there has been, as of late, I don't know, the past year or so, I've seen some reluctance from some authors to promote for free. And so I think the answer there, as far as pricing, depends a lot on your goals. Of course, it depends a lot on your goals. If you just want to build audience, if you want to build ranking, if you want to get lots and lots of downloads, you want to get reviews, then you should promote for free. You absolutely should. But you can also make money promoting for free, and I think that is still true. Like, all of the reasons that everybody has been um, pushing free promos for the past 5-10 years, as long as promos have existed, those it's still actually a very sound like economic strategy. So if you think about it, I talk to authors about this all the time, but I'm like, authors didn't invent this. Like, free is a strategy that big companies use all the time. Like, have you
Costco.
ever, yeah, exactly,
Yep.
exactly, a sample at Costco, or have you ever like tried to watch something on your TV, you have to have a free trial for 7 days before,
Yep.
like before, it's exactly the same concept.
Yeah.
So I think, whether it's trendy or not, for lack of like, maybe the people are going to come for me with pitchforks again, like, but it works, and we see that day in and day out. When we see the results of free promos, and we see especially authors who like really want to increase series read through, like they make money when they run a free promo. So that is one thing. Free works. But if you are an author who is just like really fundamentally opposed to that for some reason, or if are just like, I don't run free promos anymore, totally valid. Like that's, you know what works for you. Then I would say 99 cents. And it's just, I think for whatever reason, like the mental bar is a little higher for a reader to shell out $2 or $1.99 than it is at 99 cents. So we tend to see, I check promo results all the time for authors, and like the clicks are just higher at that 99-cent price
So
point than they
crazy. Just
are.
$1. You wouldn't think a couple of
It's
bucks would be much different, right?
Yeah, but it is. So I think,
Wow.
I think if you and I actually do like I get it. Like a reader has some skin in the game when they, even if they have just paid $1, like they might be more likely to really read it. They might be more likely to, write a review in a timely way. I do get the arguments for it, but I think, if you are going to run a down price deal, do it at 99 cents.
Gotcha. It's tough, and I think there's a lot of authors out there that are like 99 cents or even free seems counterintuitive, but it is very,
It
very,
does.
it works really well. And now we've got someone with data that's saying it instead of, me saying it. Got a couple more questions here for you before we start to wrap things up. If someone listening wants to
Sure.
improve their promo results starting today, what's one small shift they can make that'll lead to bigger wins over time?
Um, I mean, it's not an answer that anybody likes, but it really depends a lot on the author and the book. So what I would say is, or one thing every single person can do, and I think I know a lot of other folks who run promo sites, and they're all really lovely humans. And I think if you don't know, or if it is your promos are not working super well, ask someone who does. Like before you run the promo again, shoot somebody an email. So like if you're going to run a written word media promo and you're like, I ran this a couple months ago and it didn't do that well, can you take a look at it? Or I'm thinking about running this promo. Do you think that's a good idea? I run a wonderful team of like real live humans who are in North Carolina, and they love talking to authors. That's like what we do all day long. And like we'll be happy to go look at your book on a retailer or on your direct sales site, and say like, yeah, I think that's a great fit for that genre, or no, I don't. Or have you thought about, maybe this cover doesn't exactly align with this genre, or I noticed that the genre it's shelved in doesn't exactly line up. Whatever our feedback might be, if I was going to give authors one piece of advice to make their promo stronger, is if you don't feel confident about it, or if you want to be sure, just ask. Like we're lovely people and happy to talk to you, and I think that's true of most promo sites too. So I can only really speak for us, but I think you might as well take advantage of the resources that are out there, and make sure that it's a good fit before you spend your money.
Super cool. All right. One last question, of course. How can people get a hold of you and get more information about written word media?
Yeah. Please get a hold of us. Like I just said, we really love it. If you have a question, and you don't have to be, I always want to make this really clear. Like you don't have to be a customer of ours to talk to us. We have people write in all the time who are just like, I think I want to write a book, like something that like we can't help you yet, but we're happy to talk to you about what we can talk to you about. But if you want to talk to us, whether you're a customer or not, if you have questions about promos, if you have questions about anything we might be able to help you with, just reach out to us at hello@writtenwordmedia.com, just like hello, GLLO. And if you want to find out more about what kind of products we feature, just check us out at writtenwordmedia.com. And if anything's confusing or overwhelming, just shoot us an email.
Emma, you've been a delight. We've burned through a half hour like it's nobody's business. And as much as I'd love to keep you around here much longer, unfortunately, I got to cut you loose. So thank you so much for your time today. You have been a delight. So I'm going to send John over to the green room. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Emma. Huge thanks to Emma Boyer for pulling back the curtain on what's actually working in 2025. If you've been struggling to get traction with your book promotions, now you've got the insights to shift your strategy and start seeing real results. Tune in next week when I speak with author Ross Brand, who has won over 50 book awards in the past few years. Get all his secrets, insights, and tips for getting more awards for your book today. Till later, this has been Self Publishing with Dale, and I'll catch you next week.